Hello and welcome to our second tutorial on the series of on the video series on recursive function calls. So in the first tutorial we explored how we could find the factorial of a number by using our recursive function technique, recursive call technique, and in our second video we'll be exploring how to find the sum of numbers from 1 to n, where the value of n is to be entered by the user by using recursion. So first of all, let's get to the code right away, and we will see what's the method of implementing this by using recursion. So first of all, it is a very straightforward program. If we had implemented it using a normal loop, a straightforward manner without using any kind of recursion whatsoever. So let us say the value of n was 5, and in that case if we had to find the value of numbers from 1 to n, we would have calculated it like this: 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5, which would have given us a result and we would have displayed it. But here the thing is not so simple. What we are doing is, you can see that there are actually 3 functions in this program. So the purpose of summation is obvious. It is a recursive function which is calling itself, and it will eventually find the sum of all the numbers from 1 to n. Alright, and this display 1, the purpose of display 1 is to print all the numbers between 1 to n in a reverse manner. So let us say we have the value of n as 5. So display 1 will be printing all the numbers like this. Display 1, so output will be like this: 5, 4, 3, 2 and 1. And the purpose of display 2, which you can see having a similar method signature, it will print all the numbers sequentially starting from 1 up to 5. So all the numbers between 1 to n will be displayed by this display function. Display 1 will be printing them in reverse order, and these two functions are also recursive. We'll be talking about them later on. First of all, we'll be exploring this recursive function call, this recursive function on finding the sum of all numbers from 1 to n, and then we'll be moving on to these display functions. So let us check out the main method. So in the main method, obviously we are taking the number of terms as input, and then we are calling this display1 function, because in this display1 function we'll be printing all the numbers between 1 to n in a reverse manner. After that we'll be printing display2. We'll be calling display2, and the task of display2 is to print all the values between 1 and n in ascending order, that is from 1 up to all the way up to n. And finally we come to the main part, where we are printing the sum of all values using this summation function. So summation n transfers the control to this function. Alright, so summation n calls this function, and here you can see we are transferring the value that was accepted from the user to this function. And here you can see that when the value of n is 0, this is actually the terminating condition for the recursive function call. So when the value of n is 0, it will return 0. So if the value of n is above 0, so it goes to the next line. It says return n plus summation of n minus 1. So what happens when the value of n is, say, 5? So if the value of n is 5, first of all, it will check whether the value of n is 0 or not, and this will not be true. So it will go to the next part, return n plus summation of n minus 1. So here it will call n minus 1 once again. So it will be 5 plus n minus 1, which is 4, summation of n minus 1. So summation of n minus 1 will call this function once again. So here the result will be 4 plus 3, summation of 3. In the next step it will call once again, this function will be called. So after 3 it will call this number 2. So in the next step the output will be 3 plus 2, summation of 2. In the next step the output will be 2 plus summation of 1. And finally in the last step, when the value of n is 1, so this is not the last step. The last step will be when the value of n is 0. So when the value of n is 1, it will call 1 plus summation of 1 minus 1, which is 0. So finally when the value of n is equal to 0, what is going to happen? When the value of n is equal to 0, this terminating condition will be satisfied. So in that case it will start to return all the values. So this if n equals 0, return 0. You can see that this terminates the series of recursive calls. So when the value of n is 0, it will not call this function once again, it will simply return 0. So the output will be 1 plus 0 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 1 plus 5 if the value of n is equal to 0. So it will proceed somewhat like this: 5 plus summation of 4. So after that it will call 4 plus sum of 4 minus 1, that is 3, and this in turn is going to call 3 plus sum of 2, and this in turn is going to call 2 plus sum of 1, and finally this will call 1 plus sum of 0, and in the last step, when the value of n is equal to 0, it will simply return 0. So finally the value of the total sum of 1 to n will be 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1. Okay, so this is how we proceed, and let us take a look at these display functions quickly. So in the first display function, it displays all the numbers between 1 to n in reverse order. So if we have entered the value of n as 5, if n equals to 5, display 1 will be outputting the values between 1 and n like this. So if n equals 0, return, that is this is the terminating condition, and then it goes to the print statement. So it will print the value of n, that is current value, which is say 5, and after that it will call n minus 1, which is 4. So this in turn will print the value of 4, and then it will call 3, display 1 3. Then it will print the value of 3, and it will call display 1 2, and finally it will call 1, and then it will print 1, and in the next iteration, that is in the next function call, display 1 will be summoned with the value of 1, and then printf of n, that is 1, will be printed, and display 1 will be printed will be called with the value 1 minus 1, that is 0. And finally when the value of n is equal to 0, it will not be printed, it will return the value to the calling function, and thus 5 4 3 2 and 1 will be printed. And in the last step, that is in the last function, display 2 will be printing all the numbers from 1 to n in ascending order, in proper sequence, not in the reverse order. So if n equals 0, return, this is as usual the terminating condition, and then there is a change between this and this function. You can see that display 2 is called first, and after that display in this function display was called as the last step, and here the display is called before the print statement occurs. So whenever it reaches this particular line, it will call n minus 1, which is so if the value of n is 5, it will call 4. Display 2 will be called with the value 4, and this will go on and on until we get to the value of 0. So when we go to the value of 0, this value of 0 will be returned, and this value of 0 actually goes to this function, the display 2 function, and so here the output from display 2 will be printed, and the value will be 0. So first of all it will print 0. Actually it will not print 0, because when the value of n is equal to 0, it doesn't return any value, it simply executes a return statement. So after that 0 will return 1, and then it will return 2, and then 2 will return 3, and so on, and all the numbers between 1 to n will be printed in proper sequence. So this is how this function is supposed to work. So let us check the output once again. So I'll be entering 5, and you can see that in the first display function, that is display 1, all the numbers are printed properly in 5, starting from the highest number and goes all the way down to the lowest, and the sum of terms is 15, and in the next 1 2 3 4 5 is printed by this display 2 function. So this is what this program is all about. So if you haven't understood it, please feel free to leave your thoughts or queries in the comment section, or you can also contact me personally, and I'll endeavor to get back to you as soon as possible. So please go through this code once again, and I will take your leave for now, and I'll see you in my next video. Take care and have a nice day.